Hi angels. This is Whispers and Condolences by the Angel Demon on AO3. Summary. After the war, Izuku feels like his classmates are acting strangely around him, especially when it comes to the bald patch on his head that hasn't healed. He notices awkward glances and whispers, leading him to believe they're avoiding him out of pity. Determined to find out what's going on, Izuku overhears a late-night conversation and discovers that Bakugou started a betting pool about whether his hair will grow back. To make things more absurd, Denki bought him a cake with condolences written on it in case his hair doesn't return. Instead of being hurt, Izuku bursts into laughter, realizing his friends aren't pitying him, they're just handling things in their own, somewhat ridiculous, way. Izuku stared at himself in the bathroom mirror, his eyes drawn to the small bald patch on the right side of his head. He gently touched it, frowning as his fingers grazed over the smooth, hairless skin. It was a stark reminder of the battle that had scarred him, the final fight that had left him battered, both physically and emotionally. He sighed, pulling his hand away. It's just a patch of skin, nothing to be dramatic about, he muttered to himself, though the weight of everything else made it hard to believe those words. What bothered him more than the scar itself, though, was how everyone had been acting since the war ended. His classmates, his friends, hadn't been the same. They weren't avoiding him exactly, but something felt off. Conversations would drop into silence when he entered a room. Their smiles felt a little too forced. And sometimes Izuku was sure he caught them glancing at his bald spot, only to quickly look away when he noticed. I hear them whispering sometimes, Izuku said under his breath, staring at his reflection. I just hope they don't feel like they have to walk on eggshells around me. He hated the idea that his friends might pity him. They'd all gone through so much together. Sure, he'd gotten hurt, but he didn't want to be treated like some fragile thing. He wanted things to go back to the way they were, where they could laugh and joke, train, and talk openly. Izuku shook his head and turned away from the mirror. Maybe I'm just overthinking things. Later that day, during their lunch break, Izuku found himself sitting with Todoroki, Uraraka, and Ida at one of the cafeteria tables. As they talked, or rather tried to, Izuku couldn't help but feel that strange tension again. Todoroki kept glancing at him out of the corner of his eye, and Uraraka had been unusually quiet. Ida, ever the class rep, was talking about their upcoming training session, but even his enthusiasm felt restrained. We'll need to focus on honing our teamwork. I believe that's where we'll find the most room for improvement, Ida said, adjusting his glasses. Yeah, definitely, Izuku replied, though his mind wasn't fully on the conversation. He noticed Uraraka's eyes flicker toward his head again, her expression tightening for a split second. That was it. That was the look, like she was holding back something, afraid to say it out loud. Izuku frowned. Okay, something is definitely going on. Before he could ask, a loud crash came from the far side of the cafeteria, drawing everyone's attention. Kirishima had dropped his tray, and Bakugou was yelling at him from across the room, causing a commotion. It was typical, and usually, Izuku would have laughed, but today, his mind was still stuck on how his friends were acting. Hey, guys, Izuku started cautiously. Is everything okay? I feel like everyone's been acting a little strange around me lately. Uraraka blinked, and Todoroki quickly averted his gaze, while Ida sat up straighter. Strange? Whatever do you mean, Midoriya? Izuku opened his mouth to explain, but hesitated. Maybe confronting them like this wasn't the best approach. He didn't want to make them uncomfortable, and he definitely didn't want them to think he was being paranoid. So instead, he forced a smile. Never mind. It's probably nothing. But he knew it wasn't nothing. Something was definitely up, and he was going to find out what. That night, Izuku couldn't sleep. His mind kept replaying the awkward interactions from earlier, and he couldn't shake the feeling that his friends were hiding something from him. He rolled out of bed and decided to get some water. The dorms were quiet, most of Class 1A already asleep, but as Izuku passed by the common area, he heard hushed voices coming from the living room. He froze. I still think we should have told him by now, a voice whispered. It sounded like Gyro. Yeah, but it's kind of hilarious watching him freak out, another voice said, followed by a quiet chuckle. That had to be Kaminari. Shoo. Keep it down, idiot. What if he hears us? Mina's voice added, sounding half amused and half worried. Izuku's heart raced. They're talking about me. Slowly, he crept closer, careful to stay hidden behind the corner. I still don't get why Bakugou came up with this in the first place, Gyro said. It's kind of cruel, don't you think? Izuku's eyes widened. Bakugou? He thinks it's funny, Kaminari replied. Besides, it's not like we're really hurting him. He'll laugh about it when he finds out. Mina sighed. I just hope Midoriya doesn't take it the wrong way. I mean, I get Bakugou's sense of humor, but... Izuku's stomach dropped. What have they been hiding from me? And Bakugou is behind it? He couldn't listen anymore. Quietly, he backed away and hurried back to his room, his mind racing. So Bakugou's been messing with me this whole time? Everyone's in on it? What could they be hiding that's so funny? The next morning, Izuku couldn't stop thinking about what he'd overheard. It was all he could think about as they gathered for breakfast. His eyes darted to each of his classmates, Kaminari, Gyro, Mina, and even Bakugou, who was seated at the far end of the table, glaring at his food like it had personally offended him. Izuku decided he needed answers. Now. Hey, guys, he started, trying to sound casual. Is there something you're not telling me? Kaminari choked on his drink, and Gyro elbowed him in the side. What do you mean? Kaminari stammered. Izuku's eyes narrowed. I heard you guys talking last night. About me. And Bakugou. The table went silent. Everyone exchanged nervous glances, and Izuku's heart sank further. So it was true. It was Bakugou's idea. Mina blurted, unable to take the tension anymore. Bakugou, who had been content to ignore the conversation, shot a glare at her. Oi. Don't just throw me under the bus like that, Pinky. I mean, it was your idea. Mina protested. What was his idea? Izuku asked, his confusion growing. Kaminari scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Well, you know, about the whole thing with your, scar. Izuku's hand instinctively went to his head, touching the bald patch again. What about it? Everyone fell silent again, clearly unsure of how to explain. That's when Denki jumped up from his seat, trying to save the situation, by making it worse. Don't worry, man. Kaminari said, grinning nervously. We even got you a cake in case, you know, your hair doesn't grow back. A cake? Izuku asked, dumbfounded. Yeah. Kaminari rushed over to the counter and grabbed a box that had been sitting there. He opened it up, revealing a cake with the word Condolences written in big, bright letters across the top in icing. Izuku stared at it. He blinked. Then blinked again. A cake, he repeated flatly. The entire table was holding their breath, waiting for his reaction. Bakugou was scowling, but even he looked like he was bracing for something. Suddenly, Izuku let out a laugh, a full, genuine laugh that bubbled out of him before he could stop it. It was ridiculous. All this time, he'd been worrying about his friends avoiding him, thinking they pitied him for his injury, and they'd been betting on whether or not his hair would grow back. The tension at the table broke, and soon everyone was laughing along with him. Bakugou, however, wasn't laughing. Oi, don't laugh, nerd. I didn't get you that stupid cake. It was Dunceface's idea. But you started the betting pool, didn't you? Mina teased, elbowing him. Bakugou grumbled something under his breath, clearly annoyed but not denying it. Izuku wiped away a tear of laughter, feeling a weight lift off his chest. He had been so caught up in his own insecurities that he hadn't realized his friends were just trying to find a way to make light of the situation. They weren't pitying him, they were treating him like they always had. Maybe a little awkwardly, sure, but they weren't walking on eggshells like he feared. Well, Izuku said, grinning at the ridiculous cake, I guess I should thank you. Guys. But I'm still going to grow my hair back, you know. Don't count on it, Bakugou muttered. Either way, Kaminari said, cutting a slice of cake and handing it to Izuku with a grin, if it doesn't, at least you'll have cake. Izuku took the slice, still laughing. Thanks, Kaminari. Really? And for the first time in a while, Izuku felt like everything was going to be okay. This is the end of Whispers and Condolences by the Angel Demon on AO3. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestion, let me know in the comments. Have a good day, angels.